So in this video, we'll talk about a very important topic, that is connecting Sx and Sg bases. So for the very same space, we have already set up Sg bases as our initial basis. Now we are looking at another set of bases that span the very same space, and we'll find the connection between two bases. Okay, that's like how we connect two bases in any linear algebra problem. Okay, so we had initially taken plus minus z as the Sz basis. Now we take plus minus x as our Sx basis. So it's just a representation. We denote our Sx basis by this. Okay. In any linear algebra problem, when we have to connect the two bases that represent or that span the very same space, we connect them using linear combinations. Similarly, here we write plus minus x as linear combination of plus minus z. Linear combination means you multiply them by a scalar like these each states and then sum it up. That's a linear combination. So here a, b, c and d, these are complex numbers. We are in Hilbert space now. We don't talk about real numbers. Here these scalars are complex numbers. So each has an amplitude and a phase term. How do you represent complex numbers? In polar form, we write z is equals to some r e to the power I theta. The theta is your phase, e to the power I theta is the entire phase term, and then you have amplitude ahead of that, right? Okay. So now to find this ABCD, we'll use the results of experiment 2 to find these scalars. What was experiment 2? In experiment 2, we had two analyzers, first Sx and then Sc followed by Sx, right? And then we had already obtained what's the probability that if you have this Sc analyzer, what's the probability for it to end up in the plus x state? We got the probability to be 1 by 2, right? Now what we do is just plug in these values. Here we have bra plus x, right? But here what we have taken is ket plus x. So what we do is you take the bra form of it. The bra format is obtained by taking complex conjugate of A and B, right? You take complex conjugate of A and B and these kets become their bras, okay? And then you have this ket plus Z as it is, and then mod square, okay, equated to 1 by 2. Like here, you've just put in the value. Now you try to solve it a bit. So what you do is first you multiply these and you multiply this, then take the square like this. So A star plus C inner product plus Z plus B star inner product minus Z with plus Z mod square equals to 1 by 2. We already know that SC bases are orthonormal. What is orthonormal means that plus C inner product is 1 and minus C plus C inner product is 0. So what you get is A star mod square equal to mod of A square, which is 1 by 2. So you got the value of mod of A square, which is 1 by 2. Now what were the other results of the experiment 2? We had got one represents that you are inputting the first beam, the upper beam. So when you input the upper beam and you ask what's the probability for it to end up in the minus x state, so what do you have here? You get minus x here, you put minus x here. Okay, so you get C star here, D star here. Then one of it goes to 0, you get C star square, you get C square, so you get the value of mod of C square. Similarly, if instead of inputting the first beam, you input the second beam, okay, and then ask what's the probability to end up in the x plus x state. So then what you have is you write here plus x, then you write here minus z because you're inputting the minus z beam. So then you take the product, then you get the value of mod of b square. Then you input the second beam and you ask the question what's the probability for it to end up in the minus x state, right? And then hence you get the mod of d square, and all of these have the same value, that is 1 by 2. So we got the value. Similarly, mod of b square, mod of c square, mod of d square is 1 by 2, and also mod of a square was 1 by 2. But we know that ABCD, these are complex numbers. Complex numbers have amplitude as well as a phase. So by merely knowing the norm square isn't gonna suffice, right? So one important thing that will help us out here is that the overall phase of any quantum vector, it's not physically meaningful. What is the relative phase between the different components that represent the generic state? That is physically measurable. Okay, so what I really mean here is, let's go back, let's see. I've written this plus x state as a combination of these two states. Okay, so this is as amplitude some phase, amplitude some phase, so some e to the power some angle term, e to the power some angle term. What I do is, suppose it's e to the power I a here. Okay, suppose I take e to the power I a common outside. Okay, then I take a bracket here. So e to the power ia terms goes out, remains nothing here. It'll just be a real term left. Here, suppose it initially had e to the power ib. If you're taking out e to the power ia, what it becomes is e to the power ib minus a, right? Which is clear, right? You're just taking e to the power ia common. So you can take the phase of this term outside common, okay? The what you take outside of the bracket is called a global phase. Any global phase does not affect your representation of the state. It still means the same thing. So you can multiply this entire term by a common phase and it will make no change. What matters is what is the phase difference between these two components. Okay, so it doesn't matter to us what are the absolute values e to the power I or e to the power ib. What matters is what's e to the power ib minus a. Okay, I hope that's clear. So this fact is it's gonna help us to find ABCD. So we write the states as, since the norm square is 1 by 2, so the value comes out to be 1 by root 2. Then you have plus c, you have taken the phase thing outside and then you removed it because it doesn't matter. Then what you are left is this alpha is your phase difference between these two terms. Okay, I denoted by alpha. So this e to the power I alpha terms remain here and this minus c. Similarly, there has to be some phase difference between these two states. I represented by e to the power I beta. So now we have to find alpha and beta. Okay, but we have already used the information from experiment 2. What we still have is the information from experiment 1. So experiment 1 was that you had two SZ analyzers. Okay, so plus Z ended up in plus Z. Yeah, because same measurement does not change the outcome. You're performing the same measurement there, SZ, and this came out to be 0. Now suppose instead of the two SZ analyzers, you had both of them as SX. Okay, that should not change the outcomes of the experiment, because what axis you are choosing for the experiment is arbitrary. It's your choice, right? So if you choose both of them as SX, the outcomes remain same. Okay, so now we'll use the results of such an experiment where both of them are SX. Okay, so what we get is, okay, this condition, this thing implies that they are normal. This gives us orthogonal. So we'll use the orthogonality condition. Okay, orthogonality condition for Sx spaces. So we are not assumed that plus minus x are orthogonal. This comes from our experiment 1, the results of experiment 1. Okay. Now we'll just plug in the values of plus x and minus x that we have. We wrote it in the previous slide, plus x, but you write the bra form of plus x, not the ket form. So when writing the bra form, the constant terms gets complex conjugated. So you had an I term, so the conjugate of I is minus I, right? So it gets minus I here, and this gets to the bra form. Similarly, you have minus x here, so you plug in minus x, ket minus x as it is, and equate it to 0. Okay, then you do the product. You just try to open the bracket, multiply things, and then find the expression between alpha and beta. So 1 by root 2, 1 by root 2 goes to 1 by 2 plus ket, bra plus z multiplied with ket plus z, inner product plus z plus z. Then you have exponential I beta here, inner product plus z minus z. Then you have exponential minus I alpha here, inner product minus z plus z. Then you have exponential minus I alpha, exponential I beta minus z. Okay, then you equate it to 0. What we know is that plus z inner product is 1, minus z inner product is 1. This term and this term goes to 0 because these SC we already know are orthogonal. So we get 1 plus exponential minus I alpha, exponential I beta. Okay. So now you send 1 by 2 this side, 1 that side. So it comes to minus 1 here. What you get is, and you take I common, then you have beta minus alpha. So exponential I beta minus alpha comes equal to minus 1. So now what you do? You have exponential e to the power I beta minus I alpha. What you can write it as exponential e to the power, means e to the power I beta divided by e to the power I alpha. You send e to the power I alpha one side, what you get is e to the power I alpha equals to minus e to the power I beta, right? So we have obtained a relation between alpha and beta, though we haven't obtained the absolute values, but we get a relation connecting alpha and beta. So now let's see what more we can do. We have no more information from the experiments or theory that will help us determine alpha beta. So we'll choose alpha arbitrarily. Now what is that justifies this? What we actually require here is, suppose you have a vertical axis, your z-axis chosen. Now you need x-axis to be anything that's perpendicular to z-axis. Okay, so now anything perpendicular to z-axis is actually a plane. That's our xz plane. So any axis in that xz plane works for us. right? So what angle does it make with a conventional x-axis doesn't matter, right? It can be oriented in any direction as long as it's perpendicular to z. That works for us. Okay, so this freedom comes from the fact that we have only required that x-axis be perpendicular to z-axis, which limits the x-axis only to a plane, the xz plane, rather than to a unique direction. So your alpha can be anything, and then if you obey the result that e to the power I alpha equals to minus e to the power I beta, you are making sure that the orthogonality condition is satisfied, and we'll obey the other conditions we have already derived. So the easiest choice of alpha naturally can be alpha equals to 0, right? Okay. So we write our Sx basis in terms of Sg basis as plus x, get plus x equals to 1 by root 2. Here we had e to the power I alpha term. Alpha is 0, so e to the power 0 is 1. So here comes 1. Here it was plus e to the power I beta. Plus e to the power I beta is now minus e to the power I alpha, right? So it's minus 1 now. So here comes minus 1. So here we have found a relation connecting Sx basis with Sc basis. Okay, now let's do something a little more, okay? In linear algebra, when you are given any particular set of equations, linear equations, and then you are asked to solve it using matrices. So what you do, it's an easy problem, right? It's just two variables. We can do three variables as well easily, but it's two variables, okay? So you represent both of them by a matrix, column vector. Then you take a matrix containing all the coefficients 1 by root 2, 1 by root 2, 1 by root 2, minus 1 by root 2. And then you take a column matrix plus c and minus c, right? And then what you do is this coefficient matrix, you take the inverse of it, right? You send it this side. So what you get? You get plus minus z in terms of plus minus x. That's precisely what you do to get this. Okay, although you end up with the same relation, but that's the procedure we can follow. So you get plus minus z as 1 by root 2 plus x plus this, and here it's minus. So this tells us a profound statement. What we have already observed is when you had an experiment 1 and 2, when you had an experiment 2 particularly, when you had a plus c beam, okay, there was 50% chances of it ending up in a plus x state, 50% chances of it ending up in a minus x state, right? So if you initially I showed you this is your incoming beam, you can just look at this expression and tell yes, there's a 50% probability. Okay, so this represents the probability amplitude, right? How do you find the probability? You square the probability amplitude. So 1 by root 2 term is common, right? Here also 1 by root 2 and here also 1 by root 2. So the probability is 1 by 2, probability is 1 by 2. So there is 50% chance of ending up in either state. So whenever when you're representing any state and you write certain coefficients with the basis, these coefficients represent the probability. Okay, so here we have found an important relation containing Sx and Sc. A very similar procedure is followed to find relation between Sy with Sz or Sx, and similar thing is done for spin 1 case. Although in spin 1 case there is a 3 cross 3 matrix involved, but the process is similar. There you have to impose one more condition, one more, two more, some extra conditions to get your constants, and then you have to make a choice of what you want as alpha or beta to be. Okay, so this is important. Please make sure that you understand this. If you have doubts, you can email or comment below. Okay, thank you.